So I got to tell y'all, this past weekend was not normal for me at all. I spent the entire weekend from Saturday all the way to Tuesday in Kansas City with my daughter who was in the hospital. And then the time that I wasn't in the hospital, I was with my other kids in the hotel room. So it wasn't the ideal start to the college football season, I got to say, but I still enjoyed it, especially since my Hurricanes beat Notre Dame. Typically, what I do is I pick out a few different games that look pretty interesting to me and I sit down and watch the entire thing from start to finish. One of the games that I did not plan to watch because it wasn't interesting at all was Alabama versus Florida State. My mentality was Alabama, really good team. Florida State, horrible team. Not going to waste my time watching it because I know what's going to happen. So I'm sitting there watching, I think it was the Clemson LSU game, and I look at the bottom of the screen. I'm like, hold up. Florida State beat Alabama? Could not believe it. I was shocked. I couldn't wait to watch the replay of that game. So I ended up watching the replay, and I've come up with a few different answers to the questions that I've been seeing all over the place and the same questions that I had. Mainly, that question was, is Alabama bad or is Florida State good? Like, which one is it? And after watching that game, I actually have a pretty good answer for this one. All right. So let me work it out real quick. After seeing Florida State won, of course, the first thing that goes to mind is if they only won 2 games last year and lost 10, they can't be good this year, right? The only thing that could make them good is if they went to the transfer portal and just got super busy there and turned over their whole roster. So that was my first thought. Then the other thing that came to mind was maybe Bama is just trash this year. Maybe they just real bad. So let me start this video by explaining what I noticed about Bama when I watched this replay, and then I'll talk about what I noticed about Florida State, and I'll let you know if I think Florida State is actually good or not, okay? So with Bama, they are simply not Nick Saban's Bama team. Just straight up and down. This is not Nick Saban's team, man. It's obvious. Why do I say that? The physicality was just not on Front Street when I watched this game. Florida State was just outmanning Alabama, and I've never seen Alabama just get outmanned like that before. It was crazy to watch. So Alabama's definitely not as physical. And the other part that shocked me about this game was how Florida State was just clearly the faster team. You remember back like in the late 90s, early 2000s when Miami would put teams on the field and Miami was just clearly faster than the other team. They would just beat them with speed up and down the field. That's exactly what it looked like I was watching, which was crazy to me. The quarterback was outrunning their linebackers left and right. Their receivers were running away from their corners. It was just all over the place. All across the field, Florida State was faster and more physical than Alabama. Shocking. I'm sure you were just as shocked as I was with that. So yeah, they're slow, they're not as physical, and it's definitely just not Nick Saban's Alabama team. Do I think this Alabama team is trash? No, but I do think they're going to lose at least 4 games this year, if not 5 games. So the thought process moving forward of thinking that Alabama is just going to run the table and go undefeated and get the best players, that time is done. I think even if Nick Saban comes back, which I'm sure he won't, but even if Nick Saban comes back, the fact that the NIL is playing such a huge role in college sports, I don't think we'll ever see Alabama go on that same run that we saw them go on just recently or back when Bear Bryant was in charge. I think Alabama is not done because they're going to still be relevant, but I don't see them being a juggernaut anymore for the next, I don't know how many years. Okay, so that's Alabama. Now I want to talk about Florida State, okay? So earlier I mentioned that I was wondering, like, did Florida State just turn over their whole roster? Well, I ended up finding a website that I had never heard of. It's called Our Lads. I guess that's how you pronounce it, Our Lads. And what it does is it shows you their entire depth chart but more importantly, it shows you who transferred in this coming year. And when you look at their offense, it like they basically turned over their whole offense, almost the entire offense. Their X receiver, their slot receiver, their left tackle, their center, their right guard, their right tackle, their tight end, their quarterback, they all transferred in this year. Their running back, their backup running back, he transferred in this year. Their backup, like everywhere, they almost turned over their entire offense. And they have a freshman that just came in, obviously, a freshman who's a starting wide receiver. So they only have two people that's actually left over from last year's roster, which if that happens, that can make your team go from 2 wins to a potential 10-win team. Very possible, right? When you look at their defense, not necessarily everybody is changed over. Earl Little Jr. is here. He's there from not here because I'm surely not a Seminole fan. Don't say here, Lord. Anyway, Earl Little Jr. is left over from the last year's team, but he was one of the exceptional players on the team. He was one of the best players they had. And then you add in a corner, you add in a linebacker, a defensive end, and then the other defensive end. Those are some pretty important parts, right? Some important plug and play type players on the team. So did they turn over their whole roster? No. But did they turn over enough players on their roster to go from a 2-win team to, let's say, a 10-win team and potentially working on getting into the playoffs? Actually, yeah. Just a side note. Do you remember when they were trying to get into the playoffs a couple of years ago because they went undefeated and then they quarterback ended up getting hurt and they didn't make the playoffs? I spoke recently in a video where I explained the difference between a good team and a good program. It looks like what Florida State focuses on is making good teams instead of good programs. What a good program does is they get a good recruiting class, their freshmen, good recruiting class sophomores, good recruiting class juniors, and good recruiting class seniors. So after 4 years or so, you've got talent on all 4 levels. Once that senior class is gone, that junior class rises up and they're just as good as the seniors that just left. So that's what a good program does. So think about Ohio State, what Bama used to do, LSU. Think about those schools. They recruit really well. They bring in some additional talent through the transfer portal, and they become really good programs. Then you look at teams like Boise State, Central Florida a few years ago. Florida, what they do is they just bring in a bunch of talent and they plug those players in and they're like, hey, I need you to come play right now. I need you to play right now. They get all these mercenaries in there. They play really well for that 1 year. And once they are out of the program, the next guys are stepping up. For lack of a better word, they suck. And that's how you go from winning 12 games one season and the next season you can only win 2 because you're not building a program. You're just getting a good team. And once those guys are gone, if you don't hit the lottery in the transfer portal that next year, because that's what they bank on. They just bank on hitting the lotto every year in the transfer portal. If that doesn't happen, you got to rely on those guys that you weren't so high on coming out of high school and you weren't so high on. You didn't see them developing throughout the year. And it's like, okay, you're a senior. You're the best we got. So go ahead and get out there. That's what happens. All right. So I just had to go on that tangent real quick. I want to say this about Florida State. They are what I consider a minefield team. And what does that mean? A minefield team is somebody they're not deep. You're not going to see mines all over the place, right? But every few steps, you might see somebody just blow up out of nowhere. That's what I look at Florida State as. They're a minefield team where you don't really know what you're going to get from them because they play such a weird style of football that they can beat anybody. They can beat the number 1 team in the nation. And then the next week, they might lose to somebody who's not even ranked by 21 points. You don't really know what you're getting from them. A good example of this, if you remember, I think it was last year when Vandy beat Alabama. I actually predicted that game. I don't gamble, but if I was a gambler, I'd probably be pretty good at it. But I predicted that Vanderbilt would beat Alabama. Main reason why is because I looked at Vanderbilt as a minefield team. They played such a weird style of football. They can beat anybody. Their quarterback ran the ball almost like he wanted to run the ball almost every play. They did read options all over the place. If they weren't doing read options, they were throwing screen passes. They play such a weird style of football that the typical team that's coming in to play them, they're not used to playing that style. They're not used to that. So they're like, who's got the ball? Like they're fake handoffs all over the place. Everybody runs in different directions like roaches, and you have no idea who's got the ball. That's what Vanderbilt was doing. That's also what Georgia Tech does. If you remember last year when Georgia Tech was playing against Florida State early in the season, I think it was Florida State's second game, I was like, yeah, Florida State lost their first game, but they're going to lose their second game too because they're playing against Georgia Tech. It's a minefield team. A team like, let's say a team like LSU, they're just walking through this field and they think everything is just fine. And every now and again, they'll step on a mine, boom, blow up. And that's what happened. LSU is used to playing teams that play pro-style football, teams like Ole Miss, teams like South Carolina. They're used to playing these pro-style football teams. And then they go against a team like Vandy, or they go against a team like Georgia Tech, who wants to run the ball 75% of the time, and they're faking handoffs all over the place. You don't know who's got the ball. Scouting for something like that is just so abnormal that eventually you walk into something and blow up, you lose. So that, unfortunately for the rest of college football, is exactly what Florida State is. They are for one, they are pretty talented, but they're a pretty talented team that's also a minefield team. When I saw Gus Malzahn, first, when I saw their quarterback. So I saw the quarterback and I'm like, being that I'm a Miami fan, I was a little concerned. I'm not going to lie to you. Everybody talked so bad about their quarterback, Tommy Castellanos. Spoke poorly about him, mainly because he quit on his team last year, which I guess they probably should speak poorly on him for that. But I knew what kind of talent he was because I watched him play at Boston College. And I know how trash his coach was there. Bill O'Brien's trash. I said he was trash before the start of last season. Go back and watch the video on that. So when Tommy Castellanos went to Florida State, I was like, ooh, he's talented. I hate the fact that he went there. Then when I saw his offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn, I said, oh, no. Like, yeah, that was a big problem for me because I know what Gus Malzahn has done with athletic quarterbacks in the past. Just go back and look at his track record. Just go look at what he does. Also, I know the style of play that Gus Malzahn is all about. He wants to run the ball almost every play. That's just his game plan. It's just either the running back's gonna run it, the quarterback's gonna run it. We're gonna throw a screen pass every now and again. We're gonna fake that handoff, fake the screen pass, and throw it 50 yards down the field. It's just like it's a guessing game. Like if you just go back and look at the stats on this game, and obviously that was the first thing I did before I actually saw the game. I just looked at the stats. And the stats for Florida State screamed Gus Malzahn. It screamed it at me. Tommy Castellanos threw the ball 14 times. He was 9 for 14. He ran the ball 16 times. I was like, oh, man. They're going to be tough to beat. He ran 16 times and threw it he ran it 16 times for 78 yards. Florida State's going to be tough for anybody to beat this year. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Ohio State. I don't care if it's Miami. I don't care if it's Florida. I don't care who Florida State plays against. They're going to be tough to play against because they are pretty talented, but they're a minefield team. I keep saying that. Teams are not used to lining up and playing this style of football. They're just not. They're used to dropping back, covering the receivers, watch the slot. He might go, don't let him cross your face. They're used to that style of football, but when you play against this kind of style of football, you almost have to play like a bear defense, like where you got four defensive linemen, you got 6 linebackers, and they're just waiting to see where the run is going to end up going. It's crazy. So Gotta say, man, the final answer on this is Bama bad or is Florida State good? It's actually a mixture of both. And I hate to be those folks to say that because I hate when people say, oh, it's both. I hate those kind of answers. Bama's not bad, but they're nowhere near as good as we're used to. They're nowhere near as good as people thought they were. They're not the eighth best team in the country. They're just not. And is Florida State a 2-win team? Absolutely not. They're closer to a 10-win team, if you ask me. Just with the talent that they have and the style of play, they are going to sneak up on all kind of people just because like I said earlier, teams are not used to playing against a team where the quarterback will run the ball more than he passes it. Just not used to that style of football. So they're going to sneak up on all kinds of people, and it's going to be a long game for anybody that plays them. That's the bottom line. Bama's not bad, but they're not nearly as good as we thought. Florida State is not deep. They're talented and extremely dangerous for anybody that plays them. All right, so there's the answers on that. You're welcome. I just gave you the answers to the test. um, Go Canes. I almost said die Florida State. I don't want to say die Florida State, but Florida State will lose every game. Hopefully, I'm sure you won't because you got a pretty good thing going. But I do hope Florida State loses every single game this year, which they won't. And obviously, I'm hoping that my Canes win every game this year. But we shall see. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. As always, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you watching the video. Even if you watch the video and you hate it, that's cool because you watched it. So you help with the stats on things. So I appreciate the time, man. Thank you. Take care. God bless. Peace.